Hello watercolor friends. Today we're going to be painting dragon fruit in two different water-based mediums. I saw the most wonderful dragon fruit at the market last weekend and couldn't resist the stunning color. So we're going to be doing one in watercolor, that will be the first one, and then finishing off with some pen work. The sketchbook that I am using is a Strathmore sketchbook. It's an A5, 400 gram paper, which is absolutely wonderful, but of course not necessary. Anything from 200 to 300 gram would be fine. What I first did is a bit of a pencil sketch and then came in with my thinner calligraphy pen, which is a water resistant pen or water based pen, and it is a number 1. These are Artline pens and they are just great because they don't smudge at all once you put watercolor over them. So I've done a rough outline of what I want on my in my design, and just spraying and activating my colors in my watercolor palette before I start going. The colors that I'm primarily using is a quinacridone rose that's from Daniel Smith. It just has a lovely intense color, or you might know it as ochre as well. And of course a bit of my splattering, because I want this to be a fairly loose painting. So for those of you that have seen some of my other videos, know that I prefer to paint in a loose style. I'm coming in with a sap green that is mixed with a bit of yellow, lemon yellow, and then just plain sap green to bring out the color of these wonderful green little shoots that the dragon fruit has. And for those of you that don't know, these fruit come from Asia, and they're all imported. So to South Africa anyway, where I live, they are imported. It's not something that really grows, but would grow in a greenhouse and that sort of thing. But otherwise you can't really just get it on a big scale. Now you will have noticed that the color changed slightly. In between I had let the watercolor dry a bit, and watercolors always dry lighter than the colors that you're putting on. So therefore pretty often you have to add layers. So I'm coming in with a second layer here, which is a little bit more intense in color. Always just using the same colors, and I've added a touch of turquoise just on some of the shadow areas, and the turquoise I will then repeat around the frame of the for sale sign of the dragon fruit, but just to give it a bit of a base and heaviness, a little bit more heaviness on the one side. I've brought in some of the markings of the dragon fruit that has been cut in half, and some more splattering just to unify the sketch all together. So I have to give it something to sit on so it doesn't feel like it's just floating, and have added some of the greenery at the bottom, and then again some turquoise just to give it a bit of weight at the bottom. I've now coming in with the calligraphy pen. This one would be slightly bigger, was probably a size 2, just to make the lettering a little stronger and to give it some more character. Again, I felt I needed a few highlights as in bringing the subject out a little bit, giving some of a focal point, some of the pips in the fruit, just to really show what it's all about. And that is the end of the first demonstration, which is in watercolor, and the next one I'm going to be doing is in golden acrylics. So it's fluid acrylics and high flow acrylics. And the colors I've used is quinacridone red. I have used some magenta, nickel azo, green gold. But I'm adding that to the bottom in the description so that you can follow along and to know exactly which colors I've used. And here I'm doing a completely different way of painting. I have not done any prior drawing. I am going straight onto a wet page with my acrylics. Now these golden acrylics, the high flow and the fluid acrylics, are the consistency of heavy cream. So you can add some water to it and then it has this wonderful watercolor effect as if you're painting with watercolors. You just have to remember that these are fairly staining paints. You cannot lift it. Once it's on the page, you cannot lift it like you could possibly lift a little bit of watercolor. So I've just put in my general shapes and the coloring, trying to make more or less the same design as I had before. I might change something near the end. And these acrylic paints, once they dry, they don't really lose their intensity of color. That is something I do like about them. The color you put down is basically the color you're going to get. However, I do want some areas that are darker than others. So I have given them another layer, and then trying to keep the areas that you have these little leafy shoots coming out, trying to preserve those, because if I paint over them, I won't be able to get them back. I could come in with white, paint them white, and then go over it with the nickel azo yellow or the green gold. But so that would be a way of fixing it if you did happen to lose that color. But I am trying to preserve the ones that I've got. You can also see where I put the paint down, it pretty much stays. Either your page has got to be really wet so that it flows a lot, or you've just got to make sure that it doesn't dry where you don't want it to dry. And you can see the color is pretty intense. Glorious, glorious colors, and these are fantastic for painting on canvas. If you want the watercolor effect on a canvas, these are the best paints to use for that. The painting is now dry, and I decided to add the pen work. So as said before, there is no pencil work in prior. I'm now just coming in with quite a loose pen work with the number 1 calligraphy pen. As I said, this one is water-based or water-resistant, and it's just great to paint over if you need to. So just putting in marks wherever you feel there are marks. I have on the top left-hand corner painted over the area where my sign, my for sale sign was of the dragon fruit. So I would have to add that, if I was going to add that, into a different area of this particular painting. The details of the pips in the dragon fruit. And this video has been sped up a little bit 2 times, just so that you don't have to bore you with every single stroke, but I think you can see pretty well what is going on. I have decided to add the for sale of the dragon fruit here on the right hand side of this painting, but I do feel I need to come in with a different color as well. So I will probably come in with the turquoise color just to try and get a similarity of this painting to the watercolor painting that I did previously. some stronger color. This I have added a bit of the turquoise now here and a bit of a stronger green just to give it some more contrast. And the shadows to make it look slightly rounder. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos, this one on the top left-hand side, Roses in Watercolor, is done in a similar way. It was starting with no prior drawing, slight bit of a sketch just where things are based. And if you like to sketch and paint directly in your sketchbook, then have a look at some of the previous videos that I have done. Now with a thicker calligraphy pen, this is the number 3, just to bring out again some of the highlights, some splattering. And then once it had dried, I decided it was slightly too intense, so I have added a little bit of the titanium white. It looks slightly different, slightly lighter, the whole painting here, just the sunlight from the outside was coming in slightly more, but I decided just to add a bit of the white to give it a bit of to differentiate the intense darker colors to the slightly more lighter colors. And the turquoise around the border of the for sale sign and at the bottom, just to anchor down the fruit some more. And those are the 2 different varieties. So this is the golden acrylic high flow and fluid, and this is the watercolor, and I hope you have enjoyed it and will try something similar.